Sarah McLean, one of the top teachers of meditation in the United States. An incredible woman. You're going to really enjoy this interview. She's delightful and she's very wise. Sarah McLean.
So connecting to the source is not difficult. You know, I spent a while trying to figure out how to do it, but now that I've had the experience of it over 20 years, I feel really confident that most people can do it without any effort at all. But it does require some good teaching. It does require some basics. The first one is not to try too hard. That's the first one. The second one is to be very kind to yourself. And the third one is to not to have too many expectations, because tapping the source is very subtle. They're not these wild experiences that people in Sedona might want you to have, you know, mystical sensations and past life regressions. Tapping the source is very, very simple, and we just make it difficult. And I teach people, I've taught thousands of people to meditate, and I haven't met one person that can't do it the first time. But it requires satisfying the intellect. That's the first thing, because we think we know something. We think we have preconceived notions of what it means to tap the source. And what it really means is to have the direct experience of this creative intelligence that underlies everything. And the way to do that is to turn your attention inward, subtly, easily, without effort, focusing either on the sensation of your breath or a mantra, turning the attention inward so that you move to subtler levels of awareness and ultimately beyond thought to the direct experience of you, the thinker of the thought, the one who's living this life, your own essence, your own presence. So the first sort of experience I had that gave me a glimpse into the fact that I was just not this little girl who was called Sarah, that my body wasn't Sarah's body, that there was more than you and me, there was more than met the eye, was when I was about 5 years old and my parents put me on a Ferris wheel at an amusement park, and I was sitting in the chair by myself, and at the very top I was waving to them below, and the bar broke. And I hung on to it for a little while, and I have the memories of looking at everyone's faces as I was falling and hanging on and falling. And it was like slow motion. What I remember after that is, I didn't remember the fall, but what I do remember is as I was swinging on my swing set later on, maybe it was that afternoon, I remember that the me that I called me, felt much, much bigger than where my head ended. I felt like I was as big as the swing set. I felt like I was as tall as the swing set. I felt like I didn't really fit in my body, that my body was there, but this I was so much bigger. And I think that was the initial glimpse that there's a little more to life than what meets the eye. And Source itself, we see the effects of Source. We see, you know, the trees and the plants and the mountains and the birds, and we see space, and we see the things that meet the senses, but Source itself is so subtle that we can't see it. And often we're of the mindset, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. Scientists like Einstein, physicists, mystics, they've all been searching for what's the source of creation, whether they come up with the unified field or they come up with this system of belief in God. What they're really trying to experience is the source. And so mystics like Rumi, you know, Sufis and contemplative Christians and saints, they write about what's so hard to describe. They write about their communion with this source. And you know, we all have different names for it depending on the religion, but the communion itself is ecstatic. It is, they describe it as something that you can't think your way to. It requires faith. It requires a practice of welcoming the source, of doing the practice, and then it's a spontaneous experience that we cannot make last longer than we want it, than it does. We cannot make it happen, and we cannot make it end. The ecstasy of this communion with the source, whatever you want to call it, is a phenomenon that mystics throughout the ages have been seeking and experiencing.